Hello, and welcome to episode number 86 of the LSR Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all the gaming industry. With me, I have Dustin Gouker. I have Adam Candee. You can find them on the Twitter machine at Dustin Gouker. At Adam Candee, that is 2 E's, no Y. If you want to basically at one point probably lose a guy that you're following because I'll get kicked off the Twitter, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. Go ahead, subscribe, rate, and review. We really do appreciate you helping us climb the charts there and all the ways that we can listen to podcasts out there, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, etc., etc. Guys, we're going to talk about some state news. We always talk about New York, so we're going to bring that up. We're going to talk about some big numbers that are going on out there. We're going to talk about a state that seems like at any hour could be going live. There was an acquisition, not a big one necessarily, but still an acquisition that looks like there's going to be a new media entity involved in sports betting. We have that, and we'll also talk about what's going on in D.C., BetMGM getting involved over there. But let's kick things off first and foremost with a story coming out of New Jersey where the Department of Gaming Enforcement is looking to slap some hands over there, Adam.
This could be more than a slap of hands, depending on the way things go with the investigation. But what we see is a memo from the Division of Gaming Enforcement in New Jersey, the regulator there, which is a 2-page memo laying out multiple complaints that they received, suggesting that it was difficult to withdraw funds from sports betting accounts and that it was taking up to 2 weeks for some people to receive their funds. Of course, this is not an unusual type of complaint for the division to receive. Sometimes there are investigations going on internally in a company as to whether those winnings should be paid out, et cetera, et cetera. But the memo makes clear this was being received in such a volume that they needed to take a deeper look into it. And what they found was that some winnings were indeed being delayed, and perhaps way more disturbing than that, some bettors were even being encouraged by the operators to keep their money with the sportsbook. They were being prompted, messaged when they tried to take their money out saying, well, you could keep it here and bet it with us. And there are some that even got bonus offers to keep their money with the book when they were trying to cash out. Let's be 100% clear about this. This is some shady BS that cannot happen. The legal regulated market has made its pitch to be that these are the types of things, exactly these types of things, that don't happen. That this is where your money is safe, that this is where you can access it at all times. So to put a delay of any amount of time, especially 2 weeks, and then above and beyond that, to potentially be trying to entice people back in is some garbage that absolutely cannot happen.
This is taking a page from the old gray area online poker stuff. Back in the day, you would go to withdraw. They would come back to you, are you sure you want to withdraw? And it would be like, hey, if you don't want to, here's a tournament ticket if you don't withdraw, and here's whatever and all that. And like that used to be a very, literally one of the first things I remember from back in the day in online poker is the delay on the withdrawal with the, oh man, don't take that money off the site. We need that for the good of the economy here. So let me spiff you for doing that, Dustin. I know you remember it very well.
Absolutely. Even though I was not a great poker player, I sometimes did withdraw money, not once in a while. But Adam hit it on the head. This is something we're here trying to say regulated sports betting, and this also probably applies to online poker and online casino. We did not get what operators were involved in this from the DGE in New Jersey. So this cannot happen if we're going to say we're better and more transparent than what's going on in the offshore market and even in the UK where this has been a problem as well. You got to stop this. This is why we have regulation, so we're not doing this nonsense. This is a huge responsible gambling issue. Anybody who's doing this should be ceasing and desisting now, absolutely. And the other part of this is just New Jersey. If this is happening in New Jersey, I guarantee you this is happening in every other state where there's legal sports betting. We presume some of these operators that are in New Jersey are doing it in other states too. This is not a New Jersey only problem. New Jersey, not people don't always love what the regulators do there necessarily, but they are at least transparent. They put this out. We have no sense of whether any other regulator in any other state can wrap their minds around this or even know it's a problem or have fielded issue calls. But there should be this should be now going to every other state where we have legalized online sports betting and online casino, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Colorado, et cetera, all the states that we talk about all the time. This is not a good look for the industry, and it should stop immediately.
Adam, listen, this is one of those things where I think this is going to be kind of an ongoing, and I'm not talking about the trying to get people to stay and keep their money on the site, but what I'm trying to say is, just the deposit to withdrawal time limit, right? Because this is something that's been going on since the beginning of time, that you can fund your account instantly, right? I mean, like, you can literally have funds in your account in a matter of seconds, and then always the withdrawal process takes longer, be that, a day, 2 days, a week. It should never be taking 2 weeks like we're talking about in this instance right here. But I think this is always going to be something that we need to kind of make sure that is continually getting checked, continually getting monitored. Make sure that these sites are streamlining that process as much as humanly possible, because again, we understand why it takes a little bit longer to deposit to withdraw than it does to deposit. But that being said, just the optics alone that you can fund your account in seconds, and the fact that it would take, upwards of 2 weeks to withdraw, is just not good for this industry moving forward.
No, I would say that the Hotel California method of doing things, where you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave, is probably not going to work for the regulated market. The biggest problem with all of this, Matt, is that within an hour of this news coming out, I saw a tweet from the Offshore Gaming Association capitalizing on this, jumping right on it and saying, this is the problem, right? Like, pointing out exactly what the problem was. And it doesn't matter, let's say, with more than a dozen operators in New Jersey, right? It doesn't matter if it's the smallest operator who is doing $500,000 a month in handle. The stain applies to everyone once it's out there. This memo doesn't specify which book, and you wouldn't expect it to from the DGE, but it doesn't matter, because this will be a stench that follows, not, as Dustin and you were both saying, across the country. No matter how long it takes, this is going to be brought up in every state. This is something that, as you said, has a history, but it's an uphill climb with regulators. It's an uphill climb with legislators. And it only takes one story like this to be thrown in front of legislators and regulators who are hesitant to make them even more hesitant.
And Dustin, it wouldn't surprise me with something coming out like this if we start to see books, some of the ones that know that they're not participating in this, the ones that say that definitely we're doing quick payouts, we're not doing any sort of delays, stuff like that. Like, I would expect this to be an opportunity to capitalize for those people as well. Like, if you guarantee payouts within 48 hours or something, or within 72 hours, it would not surprise me if that becomes, something that we don't really see that right now. It's more about the deposit bonuses and, hey, sign up for this and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, as bettors become more savvy, and as these markets mature, especially like a New Jersey market, where these guys have been around for years now, as we progress, that wouldn't surprise me to see that be a marketing angle with these people, like, guaranteed payouts within 48 hours or something, or yada, 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 which, for a savvy bettor, for someone who does this to try and make money and stuff like that, I think it's a fairly compelling pitch.
Yeah, and look, payments are a difficult issue in online gambling, and they have been for a long time in the U.S. Like, there are reasons why it takes a little longer. Anti-money laundering, making sure that money is going out to the person it's supposed to, et cetera. There's reasons for that. But again, this example that we got from the DGE, the slow rolling over weeks is just nonsense. There's, like, if you've taken a customer's money, there's no reason it should take. Yeah, I don't know what the time frame is, but it's certainly not weeks. It doesn't have an S on the end of it for weeks. Let's put it that way. So yeah, we need. And if I'm an operator and I'm doing everything above board, I'm coming out and saying that, like, right? You should be, this. There are ways to differentiate your product, and one of them is saying, "Hey, we're being a responsible company. We're not engaging in this practice. We will get you your money as fast as humanly possible." That seems like a good marketing pitch to me. We talk a lot about what sports bettors want. if you're withdrawing, you want your money. I mean, I just did humble brag. I withdrew. We use Play Plus here in Oregon, or I do at least. I got the money onto the card. The card go to the bank. That all took 3 days. That's reasonable, and that's the way it should be. I did not. The company or the lottery did not ask me to try to redeposit either. So I don't know if they even have the wherewithal to do that. But anyway, again, the whole thing is we keep saying that regulated is better. Here, again, like Adam says, we don't know how many this applies to, but it only takes one, and then it applies to everything. And it's the nuance is left to us to deal with this, but the nuance gets lost as soon as you get out of our little echo chamber of the sports betting industry, right?
Adam, yes, he said humble brag, but he didn't say that is Russian ping pong winnings that he's withdrawing right there.
I thought it was all this Belarusian soccer that he was rolling over since the summer.
The Russian ping pong winnings are on the card right now. Good for Dustin. Guys, let's go ahead. I mean, listen, we love to talk numbers. We love to talk big numbers. I made a prediction on this podcast that in December that we would hit $1 billion. I thought with the addition of the NBA, with the addition of college bowl games where people bet on college football whenever they haven't bet on college football all season long, would probably get us there. Dustin, I was wrong, but I was not very wrong.
I don't know. In DG Sportsbook, I'm grading you a winner. We're gonna round up to $1 billion and call it a winner. Why not? I mean, we don't have any rules here for my sports book. I actually don't take any bets, but yes, we had just under $1 billion. I mean, I thought we'd get there too, just based on what we saw in November. But $996 million was wagered in December, the most ever by any state, obviously by a long shot, because it was in the 800s last month, or 900, I guess, $930 million in November. So up from that, sports betting revenue $66 million. Hold rate of 6.6%, but yeah, just the continued growth of the industry. We had all these tailwinds for what we saw. This is not a normal December. We had everything that was going on, in addition to lots of college basketball after a long hiatus and coming back in November, and the NBA launching right before Christmas. So there's a lot to do there. This is obviously, we're not done growing in New Jersey. We will definitely, I don't know. I don't think we can hit in January because we're not going to have a full slate of football in January. So we're gonna see a recession, not a recession, I guess, but we're going to see the number pull back a little bit in January. But we do have NHL coming back, which is some amount of that. We're going to see pretty big numbers still, but we will see $1 billion month, I think, almost certainly once we get to the second half of 2021.
Adam, no shock. I saw the numbers come out from DraftKings Sportsbook that this past national championship game was the highest wagered on college football game of all time for the company. Of course, they are in many more markets now, so that makes sense that would be the case here. But whenever you see the growth, in New Jersey, you start to see that, this college football game, actually, whenever we start to look, it was not only this college football game that outdid the national championship game from last year, but even a couple of the playoff games from this year outdid the national championship game from last year. Again, additional markets in the fold here. So you kind of look at this number in Jersey, and we've seen the market just continually, steadily increase. We've seen it mature over time now, of course, it being the one that's been around the longest outside of Nevada. So it does make you wonder what a Illinois is going to look like, what a Pennsylvania could possibly look like down the road when a Michigan does come on board, what that could look like. You start to wonder, are we going to have multiple states with $1 billion in handle a couple of times a year? And I think it's probably I think that probably is the favorite.
A lot to break down in that last statement. So let's start with the college football playoff there, just as its own entity. You mentioned the fact that it was the most wagered upon. Of course, that number's somewhat fungible, as you said, because of markets, but keep this in mind as well. It was the least watched college football playoff championship in quite a long time, which is something that bodes well for the sportsbooks going forward, because essentially you could say that you might not have had a ton of casuals involved in this, right? Because the game didn't draw a lot of eyeballs, but it seems like a lot of the eyeballs that it did draw wagered on the game in some way, shape, or form, or the other two playoff games prior to it. You mentioned other states and their ability to get to $1 billion in handle. Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about it. I think when you look at a state with the size of Illinois, with the size of Michigan, and those two states not having any regional competition, you're looking at them being great candidates. Now, we talk about New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the Northeast states. I know we're going to get into talking about New York in a minute here, but New York will have a big influence on whether those states are able to stay up at the lofty numbers that they've been putting up for the recent past here.
That is a very good segue here into what is, the latest here in New York. I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another. We know that it has now at least been, the idea of this is now being accepted by the governor. That was kind of step one here. Then step two was maybe let's not have a single provider thing. We did have another some new stuff introduced over there as well. So it seems like we're at least we're progressing in New York. Are we progressing to what we want, to where it needs to be? What do you say about that?
This is all a matter of whether you think Governor Cuomo is going to be willing to compromise at all, because the new development is not a surprising development. It's that Senator Joe Adabo and Assemblyman Gary Pretlow are pushing their bill. Again, Sisyphus with the boulder up the hill. Here we go with these guys. But they did end up introducing a two-skin bill. So, originally we were looking at this and saying, well, if it's one skin, then you're only going to have 7 licenses. Now they introduced a bill that does have 14 potential licenses. Now, that is, of course, in direct opposition to the governor's plan to have one operator selected via a competitive bidding process through the New York State Gaming Commission. So the question is it my way or the highway for Cuomo, or is his proposal the starting point, and then we try to whittle down during the legislative/budget process from what the bill is to what the governor proposed and try to find something in the middle? Because obviously, if it doesn't have the governor's support, the bill that we just saw introduced this week, and they can't garner legislative support for the governor, then we're pretty much shrug emoji and back where we started.
Dustin, you and I talked a little bit about this. I mean, this was I kind of did a little bit more napkin math after we did that, and I think if people kind of really lay this out for Governor Cuomo and try to explain that there actually is probably more money in doing multiple licenses, multiple people coming into play there than there is in trying to run this through the lottery, because we're talking about multiple licensing fees, upwards of 14 different licensing fees, which, as we know, they are willing to pay for. We saw with Pennsylvania. We were wondering if any of these sports books would be willing to do that. We know that they are. We know that they did. And this is New York we're talking about. So we know they're going to pony up a massive licensing fee, and having more people involved within the state is only going to give you an avenue to get more New Yorkers involved in sports betting, to get more of those people to get going as they compete for business and stuff like that. So I think if there is some sound minds there to sit down and kind of show how everything works out, I think that drawing the conclusion that more is better would probably win, but maybe I'm just being optimistic.
You would hope. I mean, the basics of it are simple. We talk about this all the time. Monopolies are bad, but New York will make money if they have a single operator only paying money to the state of New York or sharing revenue with them. They will make money. I agree with you that they will not reach their ceiling, and that is not the only reason to legalize sports betting either. We talk about this all the time, but you're trying to create something that's good for the consumer. A monopoly, the lotteries. Let's face this too. Lotteries are not good for consumers. Are not good for they create revenue and fund programs, but they are not good for consumers. You can do both here. You can have a relatively competitive sports betting market, make plenty of money for the state. Heck, tax it more and have more operators. Like you can, but we'll even see. We have Pennsylvania numbers coming out. We saw Pennsylvania not do as well as it had the previous month in November. Maybe there's starting to be some pullback because of what's going on with the high rate of taxation in Pennsylvania. Maybe that's not ideal either. So, I'm not saying you only have to tax revenue at 5%. You can take more of the revenue if you think that's what needs to happen to make this work for your state. But I'm with Adam. This is a lot of what Cuomo wants. If Cuomo wants this X way and is not willing to budge, and the lawmakers on the ground have this other open model, and there's no wiggle room, then we're not going to see this year. If Cuomo, if we have a possibility of Cuomo looking at it and saying, yes, I'm open to suggestions and meeting in the middle, maybe we'll lose a little bit of revenue, but we'll have a more vibrant market that works for New Yorkers, then we have a chance. But I don't think anybody sitting here right now knows what the answer to that question is. We have a lot more questions than answers, but we still sit here. We're talking about sports betting in New York. It has some sort of shot getting through, and maybe we'll see something happen too. I'll add an addendum onto this too, because analysts were stock analysts. Again, we're not stock analysts, but people raised the target on Penn National / Barstool because of the chatter in New York. This is nonsense. Do not. Again,
they don't even have a path to licensure, right?
No, I mean this is the point I'm making. Penn National, if Cuomo's plan, there's no way for them to get in. They cannot. They are not going to be the single operator. They are not one of the sportsbook operators that is partnered with a casino in the state. They would have to somehow usurp one of those licenses. Maybe if we got the legislative plan, which has up to 14 licenses, I don't see that being terribly likely given everything. We're more likely to get bound to a single skin market where every casino, commercial and tribal, has one skin. And again, those deals are already spoken for. There is no way. And that's on top of that. Who knows what are our chances of legalizing at all any of these things? I don't know. Adam and I probably put it at less than a coin flip, certainly. Depending on, you can be way more. So what amount of these scenarios benefits Barstool and Penn National? A small amount of them, especially. I mean, even talking fives, there's a very good chance they get shut out entirely. There's a very good chance New York doesn't do anything. So if you're buying Penn National stock based on what's going on in New York, I think you're nuts. Let's put it that way.
Well, but of course, everybody listening, keep in mind, we know DraftKings is the only stock that Dustin touts.
It's true.
So just understand that he's contractually obligated to talk down every other stock.
And
I have not shorted. I have not shorted Penn National. I actually don't invest in stocks in the gaming stocks. I try to keep out of it. I mean, I did buy a little bit of DraftKings at the beginning, and then I sold it well before it got to where it is today. Yeah. I just thought there was a chance there. But Penn National is up to $105 as we sit here today. And this is apparently all based on Barstool. Sorry, we've devolved into Barstool, but it's an interesting topic, and I'm fascinated by the stock market on this. They are, again, we're going to see what they do in Pennsylvania. Their numbers come out next week. They were number 3. I don't see them being any more than number 3, and so everybody's buying this based on Barstool being the number 3 operator across the country, and they're still not in any other states. I guess they're going to be in Michigan soon, but the whole thing is really, really speculative and wild when you look at it from where I sit.
And Adam, if we can't get anything mobile done in New York, our buddy, poor Brett Colson over at the lines, just going to have to keep making that drive to go bet in person. Never going to be able to bet in game. It's always going to be woe is me from our buddy Brett.
The state of Pennsylvania welcomes his business.
Dustin, let's talk about one of the states that we've talked about being kind of like the holy grail. And this is kind of a little bit out of nowhere. Texas is a state that has no form of gaming whatsoever. They do have the lottery over there, but they don't have any forms of gaming within the state. And that's why it was so peculiar to see not only some rumors start, but not only those rumors started getting tied to very influential and powerful people within the state. I mean, there were rumors about, there was an article that came out about the Sands Corp that maybe Sheldon Adelson was looking into Texas. And then that starts to snowball into what we have over at LSR with some other incredibly rich and incredibly important people within that state that look like they're looking into gaming as well.
Yeah, the rumors have been floating out there about Texas and sports betting for a while. The wonky legislative part of this, Texas legislature only meets every 2 years, only for a few months. I think they wrap up in May. So they have a very short window while they're legislating everything else that's going on, dealing with the COVID crisis, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a short time to do this. But there is a draft bill out there that would license horse racing tracks and the state's professional sports teams to conduct sports betting and partner with sports books to offer it. You're right; it is not a big state. There are bingo halls, there's some tribal casinos out in the middle of nowhere. You can play some cards sometimes in some places, but this is what you end up with when you don't have incumbent casinos, right? Drafting the bill, because there are none of them. So you have all these sports teams saying, "Hey, why don't we just run this?" And they have a lot of pull. You have Jerry Jones, Mark Cuban, two of the biggest names there that everybody, I'm sure, listening to this podcast knows. And you have Tillman Fertitta of the Houston Rockets, who has his own online gambling entity in Golden Nugget, and in addition to casinos in parts of the country. So we have all these very powerful people who are trying to push for sports betting. So this is not something, I don't know what the chances are, but it is a non-zero chance. We have a lot of people who are involved with this, who have lots of money and want this to happen. So when I look at it, I think maybe we got a shot at this. Who knows as we progress here in the next few months, but you've got to put Texas on the map, and we have some chance of that we'll have legal betting in Texas sometime in the not too distant future. But if it doesn't get done this year, then you're punting all the way to 2023.
Adam, this is, massive news just because of the state that we're talking about, but I think it is a little bit more than this kind of just crazy pie in the sky thing because of who is involved within the state, right? I mean, we know what kind of weight Mark Cuban, Jerry Jones, Tillman Fertitta, what type of weight these guys carry within that state. I mean, yes, they own professional sports teams, but they own a lot of other businesses as well. They have a lot of other business interests that brings a lot of money to that state. And of course, when really rich people want something to get done, it tends to move at a more rapid pace than if you and I want something done.
Well, one caveat to that, Tillman Fertitta is not carrying nearly as much weight now that he traded James Harden away from the Houston Rockets. That's a lot of weight to let go. The triumvirate there of Jerry Jones, Mark Cuban, and Tillman Fertitta certainly could get things moving in Texas. Do I think it happens this session? If you're looking for advice, probably not. It would be pretty quick to get everything together. But if this is what greases the skids for the next time they get together, then that wouldn't be terribly surprising.
That, I think, is probably what is going on here, right? It's more of okay, let's get the ball rolling now so that whenever this thing rolls back around next time, we have all the plans in place. This is exactly how we're going to do it. This is where it's going to be, yada, 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 all the stuff like that. And then they move on from there. But interesting news nonetheless, and especially when it has some super powerful, super wealthy people involved. Adam, it's we're doing this about 12:30 Pacific on January the 14th. We don't have Michigan launched yet, but maybe any minute now.
Yes, that is true. And you could come back tomorrow at this time and say exactly the same thing, and probably Monday as well. But what's going to happen in Michigan in terms of launches, there's not going to be one starting line for everyone to line up and all go at the same time. It's going to be a rolling launch in Michigan. So what we've seen is that there are a handful of sports books that are pretty much ready to go. That's what we heard this week at the meeting of the Michigan Gaming Control Board, and they are going to be allowed to soft launch, meaning open up the products for a testing phase that'll have to happen for a couple of days before they're officially licensed. But they will be able to go with those soft launches essentially as they're ready. Now, we know that is likely to happen, again, to put this in air quotes, within the next few days, but likely that sometime next week you will see some form of launch. And keep in mind, the goal with all of this is to be up and running for everybody by the Super Bowl. So you want to see that you have a week or two to work things out before your sportsbook is trying to handle the largest wagering day of the year.
Yeah, it's Dustin, as we know, I mean, the two largest betting events are back-to-back on the sports calendar, and getting going by the Super Bowl also means that you're up and going for March Madness, which those two things are the holy grail when it comes to betting events for sports books. And so while we sit here on the 14th, really the target date, that first week of February, to make sure that everything is rocking and rolling.
Yeah, and I'm with Adam. I hope we're not launching on Super Bowl Sunday. That would be kind of wild. It's also a little bit of a perfect storm. A launch plus right around the Super Bowl is kind of your perfect acquisition model if you can make it happen, right? I mean, obviously earlier better in terms of you just get the ball rolling, but it's if you're looking to bet on sports in Michigan, you have the Super Bowl coming up. This is this is attractive for a better and for a sports book operator. We'll see. I'm contracted to say online casino also on the way. I get tons of questions about online poker in Michigan as well. That's not going to happen right at launch, it doesn't seem like, but it might be pretty soon after, and it will not be it will not be compacting with other states. You'll only be playing against folks in Michigan, but it does look like we're going to see poker stars in not too distant future in Michigan for poker. So it's gonna happen before the Super Bowl. It's just a matter of the when. It doesn't seem like there's anything that's going to hold that deadline up, at least.
Let's head to your neck of the woods, up Oregon, Washington State, up in the Pacific Northwest. We have some news coming out of both of those places.
We should play Oregon City or Washington City with Matt. Yakima.
Washington.
That's correct. I thought that might be a little too easy. I gave you an easy one. Yeah, I didn't pick a college town because you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know.
Geography Matt strikes again.
It feels so good when I get a geography question correct.
Yes, we have active legislation, or at least the possibility of expansion of sports betting in both Oregon and Washington. Here in Oregon, where I live, we have a monopoly operator through the lottery. There is a bill that was put forward with the blessing of the governor, allowing for people who are contracted with horse racing to do online horse racing to have a competitive market here, where you just can come in and open up sports books here. So it would be a far more competitive market than what we have right now. The chance of that, I don't know. Even here in Oregon, I don't know. This you would think, coming from a Democratic governor with a Democratic legislature, this would mean very good things. It's not exactly certain where this is going. It's weird because the lottery follows under the executive branch. That money comes, that the lottery reports to the governor too. So maybe there's some weirdness there of saying, oh, we have the lottery and then we're going to set up competition for it over here with this other little bill. The easiest path would be to tell the lottery, go take RFPs and have more sports books under the lottery. So who knows what happens with this. The Oregon legislature, again, you think that the Democratic governor, hopefully with a majority in both parts of the legislature, maybe something happens. We don't know. We're still specking that out. Washington, same thing. We're seeing in a lot of states. They're seeing the possibility for more revenue. They have legalized sports betting at retail casinos, at tribal casinos around the state, but they are looking at this as a way to, like a lot of places, to help the state budget and what's going on. This is led by card rooms and that are around the states that are commercial in nature and not related to the tribal gaming industry. They fought tooth and nail against the tribal casinos having these sports books. So the bill at least is bipartisan. It's got Democratic and Republicans signing on to it. So another one where we have a chance. Tribal gaming is very powerful in Washington. It's a little difficult to see it getting through. But when you're trying to make budgets work, that's what we're seeing in New York. These are not budget solvers, but when you're trying to prevent cuts of programs or trying to not raise taxes somewhere else, sports betting can be a piece of that, and we're seeing that, I think, both in Oregon and Washington.
Adam, when we talk about feeder markets into the Vegas area, and certainly that gives the sports books a boost around these big events and stuff, we often mention Southern California, even San Francisco, people coming in from Utah, but we don't really talk about Phoenix all that much. But definitely a feeder market for us for sports betting purposes around these big events. We talk about the Super Bowl, the March Madness type stuff, even some of the bigger horse races and the Masters and such. But Arizona, of course, can't sit out, right? I mean, every state has somebody who's talking about trying to get it done within their state, and it looks like somebody has stepped up in Arizona as well.
Might want to talk to the folks in Utah about everyone has someone in their state trying to get it done. But, yep, there is definitely movement in Arizona. There was movement last year, too. We saw a bill submitted that was a bit of an outlier among bills that we've seen, that would essentially allow tribal entities, who are the entirety of gaming in Arizona, to have kiosk locations in bars and other locations around the state. Now, this is complicated in terms of both Arizona law and in terms of both federal law governing where Indian gaming can happen. It depends on where you consider the bet to be placed. Is it placed on the phone, on the kiosk, or is it placed at the server on the reservation? So that would have to be worked out. What are we dealing with right now here today? Governor Doug Ducey put in his State of the State address that he wants to expand a number of forms of gaming when it comes to the new tribal gaming compacts that need to be completed for 2022. So that includes mobile sports wagering. And now the governor's blessing is on this. You see a bill similar to the one from last year reintroduced in the legislature this year. So there's movement not just from the legislative side, which last year went nowhere. The bill died in committee without so much as a serious hearing. But now you see the governor saying we need to modernize gaming in all forms and potentially getting tribal interests involved in this. Matt, you bring up a good point about Arizona being a feeder market. Keep in mind that big stadium down in Glendale is in the Super Bowl rotation. It is in the college football playoff rotation for the championship game. So there are some major events that sportsbooks could be looking to take advantage of when you talk about the greater Phoenix market. Absolutely.
And beautiful stadium down there. If you guys probably saw it through the college football playoffs, if you didn't, it is something else, no doubt about it. Adam, real quick, let's just this isn't one of these major, Fox, NBC, ESPN type deals, but there are more people cutting the cord out there, and with that, Fubo has started to emerge a little bit from a bunch of the cord cutters when it comes to how they acquire their television media. And with that, Fubo said, hey, we're already online and people are already, using us while they're connected to the internet and different things like that. So why don't we look into the sports betting thing?
Yeah. I mean, why not? Right? If you're looking to differentiate yourself as a streaming service right now, you can kind of be out in the front of this, right? So Fubo went and got itself a sports book. Vigtory, in case you don't know, Vigtory, Vigtory Sportsbook acquired by Fubo. And so Fubo is going to launch its own sportsbook. Now, of course, you're dealing with a sportsbook that right now is only licensed in one state, in Iowa, but Iowa's market did just become a lot more attractive when we hit January 1st because it is now no more in-person registration for Iowa. That initial period that had been mandated by the law has expired. You now have remote registration, remote funding in Iowa, so it kind of puts Iowa on an even footing with other states around it. So, Matt, I think the most interesting thing about this is the convergence, right? The opportunity for now a channel to integrate sports betting into its programming in a streaming channel, I should say, in a 24/7 kind of way, right? It's not a sports betting network per se, but they now own a sports book and can kind of work this in however they want. So, I mean, is it Fox? No, obviously it doesn't have that kind of reach when we talk about Fox and Fox Bet, but it certainly is. It's an interesting first step in terms of the convergence of a media company, a streaming service, and a sports book.
Without knowing what they paid, I mean, I kind of like the deal, right? I think it's interesting. Like, if you're going to be,
that's where I was going with this, Dustin. I was going to ask you, because I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, you're already on the internet, right? Because you're streaming, so you're just a click away. It's not like, you can see the Caesars branding on ESPN all day long, but you still have to go seek out the Caesars app or go to the website or whatever as a second, thing that you're doing. And that's with all these other brands. But, at the end of the day, if you're watching on Fubo, you're connected to the internet already. And so like there could be this pop-up thing. Most TVs are also web browsers these days as well, like has something built in. So I imagine the goal here is like, hey, click here now with your TV remote, and then it would open up a web browser or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I just respect the move. I mean, if you're Fubo, your core business is sports streaming. Why not just go in a sports book? Why not? It's thinking big. I think that's what I like about it. Maybe it fails, maybe it falls flat on its face, but you have a chance. Instead of just taking the advertising dollars, you get to run it, and you again, just Iowa right now, but there are other opportunities. I hope they rebrand it too. That is. I think we've joked about this name. The name is
Killjoy.
I know. Who even knows what? I mean, other than sports betting, Twitter,
Right.
who even knows what VIG is? Anyway,
Exactly.
But I digress. But other than that, and I have no idea. We have no idea what Fubo paid for this. Like, if they paid 9 figures, that's probably nonsense. But if they got this, I'd figure they got this, relatively small amount of multiple over revenue. And if I'm wrong, somebody call in or DM me and tell me, but yeah, I like it. I like a sports streaming service owning a sports book, and like your upside is a lot, I think, if you look at the deal from that perspective.
So let's revisit a topic from last week, Dustin, where MGM, of course, partnered up with what is now called Entain. That was, of course, formerly GVC. And if you're more familiar with the brands behind that, Ladbrokes would be one that you would be familiar with if you're within the gaming circle. We talked about MGM wanting to go ahead and just acquire Entain. It did not look like their initial go at it was enough money. So it looks like they might have come back and gonna give this thing a second go.
Yeah, so the largest stakeholder in MGM, IAC, which took that stake, I believe, sometime early last year. Is that right, Adam?
Accurate information.
So they're the largest stakeholder, and they have agreed to add $1 billion to the deal. Now, I don't think we got an official response from Entain, other than they were open to further offers. They thought the initial offer of $11 billion, mostly in stock, undervalued the company, and they kind of dismissed it. So this means IAC is investing. When it made the initial investment in MGM, said it was doing this for the possibility of online gambling. So obviously it wants to see this happen, because that's the reason they invested in MGM in the first place. So we have sweetened the pot. What is 12 billion cash in stock enough? Guess not, probably. But if you're looking to get closer and start, shareholders start, you keep upping the price, and maybe shareholders start changing their minds, saying maybe we should be doing this. So again, the whole thing is MGM trying to own its own stack. Trying to own Entain instead of this partnership that it has in the United States for online gambling and sports betting. So we'll see. We have not seen the deal be said, yes, we're going to do this. So we're probably going to need to see more sweetening, I think, or we might just see this go off into the sunset, and the partnership between Entain and MGM continues for the short term.
Adam, I'm going to speak for the three of us whenever I say that this podcast is for sale for $1 billion. We will entertain offers, and if you come with a B in front of the offer, it is yours. Like we will just gladly take that, and this podcast can turn into whatever you want it to.
1 billion lira, 1 billion pesos. We will take anything with a B in front of it. It doesn't have to be dollars. We are flexible.
Yes, Bitcoin, whatever. Yes, 1 billion.
Yes, 1
Bitcoin.
billion Bitcoin. Yes, I don't even care how far it's fallen. No problem.
Our favorite listener and coworker Julian, if you could pay us $1 billion, and then we'll just talk about whatever you want to. Think about that.
We'll just make this the Julian cast. Yeah, this will be the Julian podcast every week. And Adam, take us home here with DC and what is going on over there, and of course, let's go ahead and take our monthly crack at Gambit.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in DC these days, but let's go ahead and keep it specifically to the sportsbook side, because we know you can hear about the other stuff just about anywhere else. So now we see BetMGM expanding a partnership here with the Washington Nationals. The Nationals will now have a sportsbook located within Nationals Park, and also you will have the BetMGM app available within a 2-block geofenced radius near the stadium. That's the way that the law works in D.C. The D.C. Council essentially set it up so that our good friends at Intralot and Gambit D.C. Are the only ones allowed to have a district-wide app, but you can have these geofenced apps working within a certain radius of stadia. So when you have Nationals Park, BetMGM, you also have I believe it's Capital One Arena downtown, where William Hill is able to operate. They have the retail sportsbook, and they're going to be launching the mobile app within the radius of that arena as well. What does it ultimately mean? That Gambit has another competitor that is going to knock it silly. We know that the Intralot product has been dealing terrible lines since the start. We've seen that it has been getting lapped by a retail sportsbook in William Hill down at the Capitals and Wizards Arena, and now you put another big entrant into the market here with BetMGM, and it just makes you wonder, at what point does the DC Council potentially go back to Intralot and revisit this contract? We've heard from the spokesperson that they're getting what they want out of the deal because they feel like that their revenues aren't too bad. That'll be interesting to see how that keeps up if we continue to see deals that look like this, that bring in competition that is going to essentially make that app obsolete before long.
Guys, everything we talk about on this podcast, as you know, you can find over at LegalSportsReport.com. So go over there, take in all the great work being done by Adam and Dustin and all of their crew over there with Matt and Brad and everybody else that is putting out really just the very best gambling news you can possibly find. If you're interested in this growth in New Jersey, you can go over there and you can look at the handle for all the states on a very special handle page that we have if you're interested in handle. So be sure and take that in as well. You can subscribe, rate, and review Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google, and follow Dustin and Adam on the Twitter machine at Dustin Gouker, at Adam Candee. That is 2 E's, no Y. And if you have some sort of something against yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. For Dustin, for Adam, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week. And we're clear.